Welcome to the main meeting of the Commission on Aging. Thanks for everybody for joining us. Our special guest today is Steve Olvany, Chair of the Darien Planning and Zoning Commission, so it's so cool to have him here today. We'll open quickly with our April minutes. Does anybody have any questions or changes relating to the April minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve them? Thank you. Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. We'll now move on to our Mather Center report. Beth?
Okay, and I'm going to make it brief because we want to hear everything you have to say, Steve. Basically, we are back to all the drop-in programs being dropped in again, and so the sign-ups are now just for the monthly programs. And we are probably up to 50% of what our attendance was pre-COVID, which is a huge improvement over when we started open in on June 7th of last year. And we received a very generous donation, which you all have to confirm that I can accept, of $5,000 to the Mather Center. Basically, it's in my name, so that's why you have to accept it, for program activities and services from a member who wants to remain nameless, though she did get 2 letters, one personal from me and one from the town. But you have to approve that the Mather Center can have.
Can I have a motion to approve? Thank you. Second, thank you. All in favor? Aye, you got it. Beth. There you go.
Thank you. And we're probably going to be utilizing that for the expanded ARPA. We're looking at the ARPA funds that are going to come to the center to build a whole new computer lab for us, all updated, and to have a lending library for iPads, so that we will, because we now know the virtual world is with us forever, so we'll be able to simultaneously program and to teach people how to use their iPads as well. So we're going to have some more computer technology because of that. So
Awesome.
we're going to add that money to that.
Well, thank you to whoever that anonymous donor is.
Yeah.
Hope they're watching on TV 79.
I
So
hope
we
so,
say
too.
thank you. Appreciate it. Clap, everybody, whoever you are. Thank you so much. Awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else for Beth? Nope.
No, that's it.
Any questions for Beth? Hearing none, I'll move on to Allie. Allie, Human Services.
Morning. Not too much to report. We started, or Cynthia started taking renters rebate applications this week. We actually sent a letter out to all of the Royal residents, and we have a few new clients. So that's great, that they weren't aware that we existed or that we provide these services. And we're actually in the process of trying to set up, probably bi-weekly, maybe monthly, depending on how many people come, like office hours over at the Royal in the community room. We talked about that before the pandemic, and then
We did.
but now I think we can do it.
Yeah.
So that's our next little project. And that's about it. Actually, the energy assistance deadlines were extended, so there's still people can still apply. It was throughout the state. I guess they must have had money left over like they had the past couple of years. That's about it.
Awesome. Any questions for Allie? Yeah. Oh, Steve.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Sure.
We had a meeting last night at P&Z, and the developer of Darien Commons, which is federal, is going to launch their it's called a lottery for the
Right.
affordable units. Are you involved in that at all? Because your name came up last night.
Well, I'm not involved. I can be if you want me. Like
Okay.
when the Royal had their lottery, I went just to observe.
Up in Hartford?
No, right here.
Okay.
At the Heights. And actually Jeremy and I spoke last week because I would like to know how people can apply, because people call our office all the time. That's probably like the number one reason, like trying to find housing, affordable housing. So if I can get the contact info, then we have it and we can give it to people.
I would get it from Jeremy.
Yeah,
Because
okay.
there's a dedicated person at federal
Perfect.
that's in charge of it.
Awesome. Yeah, I talked to him last week and he said to follow up this week, so
It came up last night,
nice.
and your name was mentioned.
Okay,
Thank you.
great, thank
You
you.
might also consider getting that information to At Home in Darien.
Yeah.
Because again, I'm sure there are members that are looking for perhaps smaller living units than where they are right
Mhm.
now.
Well, we can also probably get the town to put something out there about it, about the affordable, because it's such high demand.
Yeah.
There's gonna be 16 of them
16 affordables.
Yeah.
Oh, good. In just the first round or all together?
in both buildings.
Right.
There's 8 and 8, and there's 8 1-bedrooms and 8 2-bedrooms.
2 bedrooms.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
that's for families.
Yeah.
Wow, great. Thank you. It's exciting.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Allie? Hearing none, thank you, Allie. And now we turn it over to Steve. Steve, thanks so much for joining us. We know you had a P&Z meeting, as you just mentioned last night, so you got a quick turnaround back to Renshaw Road. So thanks for being here. Our topic that we're looking at as the Commission on Aging is walkability and livability in town, especially obviously for our seniors and how they can get to different places. So we couldn't go any to the more to the top than going to the Planning and Zoning Chair to start our process to talk to us about the town's goals in terms of walkability, livability when you're reviewing developments or anything else you're dealing with. And to be blunt, what else can be done as far as the Commission on Aging and other groups to say, you know, what else can we do to help?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I am Stephen Ovani. I'm the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I probably lived in Darien 23 years, something like that. I am also related to the Capelli family, who's been here for, I don't know, since the cows came home. My wife works at Atria. She's the lead nurse at Atria, so she has a lot of residents, such as yourself, that's there, and she loves working at Atria, I can tell you that. I really appreciate Joe inviting me today and Ray inviting me today to the meeting. It is definitely a topic of discussion that we have in the Planning and Zoning Commission, which is walkability and livability in our town. It's something that we've focused on consciously and unconsciously for the past, I would say, almost 10 years. I've been on the commission about 10 years. It has a bunch of different prongs and aspects to it. There's the town side of it, which is to get the town to do the new sidewalks, and the one that I love the most is the one that goes up Hollow Tree Ridge Road, starting at Heights Road at the train station, going all the way up to the middle school and beyond. The other one I like a lot is we're almost finished with the sidewalk that starts at the Stainford border on West Avenue and goes all the way past Rings End. That is only a few years old. We also focus a lot on traffic calming in town. That's a new buzzword in the world. It's a fancier way of talking about speed bumps or speed dips. You'll see signs in the middle of the roads that say, slow, children involved. Those are the yellow stations that are in the middle of the streets. And actually, that one started from my father-in-law, Angelo Capelli, when my little kid was in my street, and cars were driving down the road to Middlesex Club, and he blew a gasket. He went over to the police station, and that's when now you see all those signs popping all over town. What we also focus on in the new developments, what Joe asked me to kind of sort of focus on, there are a bunch of new developments in town. I can always start with what we call the big three, which is Norotan Heights, and it's got two pieces. One is the federal project, which we call Darien Commons, and the other project is called the Palmer Project, which is on the corner of Hollow Tree Road and Heights Road. Then the third big project is effectively called the Big Water Project for the Corbin District. And I see Mrs. Genovese is here today. She's very familiar with the person that is running that project.
Just a little.
Just a little. The other fourth projects is there's another developer called Joe and John Vaccaro. It's a father-son team. They've done, that people really wouldn't know it, they've done about 6 projects in the last, or 4 projects in our town in the last 3 years. And each of them has opened, and they've been also very successful. Part of the idea is to connect the town and to connect all the projects. What we try to focus on is wider sidewalks and safer sidewalks. In downtown, on the post road, there's a zoning code that says if everyone's going to do any kind of new construction, you have to do marble block sidewalks, which is where you see the granite curb, then the brick, and then the concrete. It just makes the sidewalk wider, it makes it prettier, and then it also has the black lights that are like the old oil lamps. That's something that's important. If you look at some of the projects that the Vaccaros did, the one that everyone knows the most is where Danny's Bicycle is, and the Roost Coffee Shop. That sidewalk is pretty much double wide. It's really wide. I kind of sort of think that concept started from David Genovese, what he did 1020 Post Road, which is the restaurant in the center of town where Gopher's Ice Cream is. That sidewalk is also double wide. There's also benches on there, and the Vacaros, they did that project where Danny's Bicycle is, and their newest project is across the street, which is 1897 Post Road, which is on the corner of Dickinson, and it's across the street from the Norotan Heights Shopping Center, Norotan Fire Department. If you look at that one, that's a really wide sidewalk. The thing that's also, that's very focused on is internal sidewalks. The Baywater project, there's a bunch of internal sidewalks on that property where they go through around the buildings. There's about 6 buildings inside that project. And there's going to be a lot of brick sidewalks, which is the way of traffic calming, and also connected roads. That also exists inside the federal project and also inside the Palmer's project. The reason why those are done and the reason why the sidewalks are made out of brick is because it makes noise when you go over it. A lot of people don't really recognize it, but if anyone's looked kind of sort of closely between Uncle's Deli and between the Sugar Bowl, there is a brick sidewalk. That is in-place hand brick, and it's a way of doing traffic calming. I'm in the commercial real estate business, and when I do projects like that and see projects like that, what they do now today is it's called stamped asphalt, where they'll put down asphalt and then they stamp it with some kind of machine, and it looks like fake brick, and they paint it red and they paint it white. In our latest approval for the new Palmer's project, we made them put in stamped concrete on every single, stamped asphalt, on every single opening for their curb cuts, and I think they have about 5 curb cuts. It's a little bit of a cheaper way of doing it versus brick, but it does the same exact purpose. If you also go over to the Vacaros project, the Vacaros bought the old Darien Playhouse a few years ago. They re-renovated the entire thing. We made them, as a planning and zoning commission, make a sidewalk that basically goes from the old front door, which is actually the rear door of the movie theater, all the way to Grove Street. It connects to where Neat Coffee Shop is. And where it crosses over Grove Street, there is a brick sidewalk with granite on either side and brick in the middle. That sidewalk, I think, cost about $1,000 per linear foot. It's really, really expensive. I asked Mr. Vaccaro to do it. I didn't force him to do it. It is on their property, but they always go above and beyond and make it. In that light, as I'll say it again, for Mr. Genovese, David Genovese, when he came up with the Corbin District, he did some research in the Town Plan of Conservation and Development in 1965 or 67. There was a sidewalk plan and a walkability plan for the town of Darien. Many of those projects were done over the years, and it's kind of sort of organic. Right now, the last piece of the puzzle we have is to connect where it used to be called, well, it was, I'm blanking out why, Brooks Brothers store, which is now the dress shop. The sidewalk starts at Brooks Brothers, and it's supposed to go all the way to the Darien Sport Shop.
Yeah.
If you go there, because the plan in 1965, which David Genovese found, is to make the town more walkable. There's the Post Road, and then there's Grove Street. There's also supposed to be a 3rd street on the other side, which is behind CVS Pharmacy, behind 1020, behind all those. So downtown Darien would be basically 3 streets, which is one in the middle, which is the Post Road, and 2 streets on the other side. As part of Corbin's project, they're putting in a new road that's going to come off behind where Bank of America building is, connect behind all the new buildings that are building, crossing over Corbin Drive, and then go between the 2 buildings on Corbin Drive to get you to the Center Street parking lot. That's going to be the road on that side. I've actually called it Penny Lane for Penny Glassmeyer. I don't know if it's going to stick or not, but we're going to try. On the other side of the street, it is the Grove Street, which I spoke about. The last piece of the puzzle for that is where a building called 2 Squad Lane is. It's a white house in the back. It's owned by the Delcetti family. They have an application coming in to redo that again. we are forcing them, or I am forcing them, to connect the sidewalks from Brooks Brothers, which they also own, all the way going to the melting pot. That's the last piece of the puzzle that's not done, and that's something that takes over time to connect all those items. That can be monoblock, it might not be monoblock, but the idea is to connect everything so people can walk down the sidewalks. The other things that we've also done, the towns also focus on it, as I said earlier. If you look at the Royal Project, which you spoke about a minute ago, that has really beautiful sidewalks. It comes from Post Road and it goes all the way up to Side Street, which I think is Academy Street, and then it connects over to Highland Street. That's another way of walkability. What people that I know, and my father-in-law does it, who lives on Hollow Tree Ridge Road, they'll come out of the building to Royal and just walk around the building and walk on the sidewalks. It's great. It's a great way of getting exercise. I already spoke about going on Hollow Tree Ridge Road. The town also did the same thing on Hoyt Street that connects from the cemetery that's the end of Hoyt Street where Main Court is and goes all the way to Home School. That was a project that was done by people. It was done by the town, and some people in the neighborhood also called for it. We worked very closely with the police department, which is the local traffic authority, and also the public works department, and asked those people, this is what we're focused on, this is what we're doing, and get their approval on a lot of the items. The biggest things that I try to look at and see is look at other towns, see what they're doing, see what we can add, and see where it comes in. The town does have a budget every single year to do X number of feet or miles of sidewalks and X number of feet of miles of roads. What is really nice, where you talk to the Director of Public Works, he has a priority list, and if you talk to him, he can move some of the sidewalks around. The other thing is you do have to talk to the local owners and developers in town. There is I'm going to say it's a secret path. It's a sidewalk that's supposed to be there, it's not there. If you go in downtown Darien, there's 1020, the next door is Fairfield County Bank, and then there's the church. There's a right-of-way between those two buildings that is supposed to be a sidewalk that connects basically Uncle's Deli or where the jewelry store is, across the Post Road to the Center Street parking lot that's back there. That's a big deal because, again, Mr. Genovese, when he did his Corbett District project, we had to go up to the state of Connecticut and say, we want to be able to connect the Darien Sport Shop across the Post Road to get to the other side where the new Corbin District is going to be, basically where the Bank of America building is. He had to go up to the state of Connecticut and get a traffic calming crosswalk in the middle of the road where there's no traffic light. It's not an easy task. They did it up again also where Dutchess is on the other side, where there's a crosswalk that just comes out of nowhere. And another one, if you can get one where Uncle's Deli is and those other buildings to go from one side to the other side, that's going to make it better.
Especially Gophers.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty much what we're doing in a nutshell, in a big picture. If there's anything that you guys think you want us to do or try to add to, we want to help out with something, that's great. When we did the Parklands development over on that's off of Old King Highway, that was approved as a new 60-unit building in the back of Parklands. There's a sidewalk that's been designed that takes everybody from there all the way to the Post Road, and it all connects, so people can, you can start at the Post Road, which is kind of sort of where Maplewood is. That's where the corner is, and you could walk on the sidewalk all the way to Selleck Fields. That's the whole concept of what we do, and it is expensive. The town pays a little bit of a portion. We always get the police department to sign in and tell us, and then we put it on the developers and make them do it. There was one instance where a developer didn't do it, but they didn't do what they were supposed to do when they approved anyway. But that's what we're trying to do.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
I'm wondering if that 1965 plan is available to us to read.
Out of that plan, I have the drawing of it, which is signed off by Clark Associates, which is the same land plan that we use today. I have it, I was gonna bring it today, it's sitting on my desk. It is in the town hall office. What goes with that plan, I don't know, because I actually got that one page from David Genovese when he gave it to me, but I will definitely get it to Joe.
And do we have a plan, for example, that we say, we have now that we can look forward to in the next 50 years?
We
Is
have a
something
plan now.
in existence already?
Yes, that's called the Town Plan of Conservation and Development. It is on the website. It's dated 2016. It gets updated every 10 years. That plan has a walkability section in it, and it shows the pictures of traffic calming and all the examples that are in there. And in the back of that plan, it also shows, it might have been taken out. There was a diagram of the intent. But that's the same roadmap that we've been using. It gets updated by state statute every 10 years. That's the same roadmap we've been using since 1967 or whatever the plan was. So it's kind of cool to see where we were, where we're going, and how close we are to get there. And my goal before I leave the Planning and Zoning Commission is to connect those 3 streets downtown.
Peter, I'll put you on the spot. Greenwich got to be walkability, right? In other words, Greenwich met some standard relating to walkability that they were certified. Can you tell us more about that, and Steve more about that?
Well, the grounding of the Greenwich plan essentially was the AARP livability community. They did do they did the survey that AARP recommended, but in addition, they also did another survey the town itself did, looking at more individual needs and area needs, okay? Yesterday I had a long conversation with folks in Fairfield, and there's a group in Fairfield that is, and I'll talk about that later, they're much more interested in the tax dimensions,
Okay.
Real estate relief. But one of the things they're doing is they're doing the same thing, and they're working, I believe, with Sacred Heart University, and also they're looking to implement the AARP walkability process, livability community process. But a key to that is, and it's not a complicated thing, but it's inclusive. And I don't know, Steve, 5 years ago I proposed it, because I've been as an AARP volunteer, was in the development of this whole program. And I proposed it for the town, and Jamie Stevenson said, it's a great idea, you do it. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I said, we need a leading public figure in town to do it. And she said she didn't have the time. She designated another member, and I'm not going to name names. I presented to that person, and she said, I'm going to try to get to it. She never got to it. If you look at our meeting minutes, we started again about 5 months ago, and Ally suggested someone that could maybe lead this effort in town government. I spoke to that person, and that's been 4 months ago, and again, following up, just too busy to do it. And I understand how busy and stretched out everybody is, but that's really what's required. I mean, what you're doing is wonderful, but it's just one piece, as you know, of the puzzle. It requires a lot of other things. At the state level, for example, where you're dealing with state roads, for example, at the federal level even perhaps. But the most important thing, I think, is to do a livability plan that essentially puts in plan what the town needs. And so there are towns that have done walkability, there are towns that have done transportation. Georgetown is an AARP livability community. Their real need was transportation, just because where they were and how their service was from buses and things like that. In other areas, it's other factors. So it's safety, it's maybe dealing with a gap in medical services in some towns. So that's the background.
We can put you on our agenda anytime. You want to come to speed Planning and Zoning Commission, you're more than welcome. I would take it on. We do half of the things that you're talking about. Part of what I do is I've been, like I said, in commercial real estate in this market for, I don't know, it's like 30 years. I'm actually not that old, I'm only like 39.
We're genius, graduated.
It's just kind of like you Penner thing. He's about the same age as me, or I was. But in all seriousness, Darien Darien's very similar to Fairfield. Okay,
Well, but
Darien-
it's a third of its size.
but I'm going to tell you why. Greenwich, their main street, which is Greenwich Avenue, is perpendicular to the post road. Westport, their main street is perpendicular to the post road. New Canaan is perpendicular to the post road. Those are our three peer towns. Fairfield is parallel, is on the post road. Okay, so that's the difference. I was hired in the 1990s to do something similar for the town of Harrison, because the town of Harrison, where their train station is on Purdy Street, and the town is linear. So they wanted to make the town perpendicular, so they have all the side streets so they can get, and it's got to do with urban renewal and expansion, so the revenue goes down the street, and it creates other stuff so you're off the post road. So the reason why I say that up is, relative to our traffic calming, I'm modeling Greenwich. So if you go to Greenwich today, there is brick sidewalks between all the streets. The only one that we have it in right now is between Uncle's Deli and Sugar Bowl. That's the only one. This stuff in the back, where I said John Carver put in for $1,000 a linear foot, that's another thing. So relative to something like that, I was in Fairfield, I just did 3 deals in Fairfield. It is very hard to get across the post road from the left side to the right side. And it's also parallel parking. We do have that in Darien. Some of the perpendicular parking that's over at, I'm going to say Helen Anson and Frederick's Hair Designs, that's not there anymore, Bobbles, that's coming out because of the apartment district. We also are getting the crosswalks across the post road. So that, I think all the towns that we spoke of, especially those 4 or 5, are trying to do the same thing. But if there's something that those guys are doing, or you need us to do and want to present the plan to us, we have all kinds of contacts up at the state level. The best person is Francis Pickering, who is the executive director of WestCog. And WestCog means the Western Council of Governments. He and I traded emails yesterday, and he's in the ear of all the politicians up in Hartford all the time. Because whenever we do a plan that's a major plan, it does have to go up to Hartford. The Baywater property had to go up to Hartford for a bunch of different reasons. Plus, it's at the exit of I-95. You know, so our staff or someone in our commission could take that on as a side project. We have all kinds of side projects. It's part of it is changing the zoning. Right now, we're doing the affordable housing plan. We're up to chapter 6 on it. I think there's another chapter to go, and then the table of comments and the executive summary. That's due up to the state level. The town plans for conservation development. We're doing accessory dwelling units. We still have to do the cannabis item. We did parking. We did sizes of apartments. We made some of the apartment units smaller a couple of years ago to make them more affordable. It doesn't take a rocket science to know that a 500 square foot apartment is cheaper rent than a 2,500 square foot apartments. In some zoning code back in the 1980s, you were not allowed to have an apartment in Darien of less than 1,000 square feet. Why, I don't know, but it was what it was. Now we switched it, but all I would need you to do is get on the agenda for during a general meeting, present your thought or your idea or what your concept is with some context, and we'll see if we can take the ball and run with it.
Well, we'll choose that through our own commission first.
Yeah,
and then we'll get back.
but we appreciate the offer. I mean, especially with one of your staff members maybe taking the lead, that might be the help we need. But yeah, so we'll circle back to you on that. That's great. I want to go back to one thing you raised, which I found fascinating, which was David Genovese is going to be putting in that road, what I would consider behind Calvary Baptist Church, behind going from that area is in a parallel on the opposite side. Where is that? Is that going to come out roughly where the Bank of America is? You'll access that where Bank of America is and then circle back through there?
Yep. It starts on the, where Interstate 95 comes in, there's the
Yep.
exit ramp
Yep.
and the existing drive-through to the ATM for Bank of America will wrap around the first building, which is always been designed and called the LL Bean building. Then go back through the center of the project, cross over Corbin Street, and then go into the other side. So right now on Corbin Street, you see the first building going up,
Yeah.
and you see the third building going up,
Yeah.
which is Bank of Amer- or the third building, which is the Bank of America building.
Mhm.
The building in the middle is not done yet, but there's gonna be a road that connects up, and it's all gonna line up directly.
Will there be street lights? How will they handle going?
It's all street lights.
All street lights. So when you cross Corbin building from, or Corbin Street, I should say, from that new road, you'll have a traffic light there.
No, it will be a traffic light. There's no traffic light on Corbin Drive.
Yeah.
No,
So it'll just be four-way stop, or will it be just you take your chances
I
exiting?
think it's gonna be traffic calming again.
Okay,
You
got it.
might see a brick sidewalk going across.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I find it's thinking about these projects and with like 5, 10 years, how long do you think that would be? I guess I should ask David next month, but nevertheless, your thoughts? Is that a
He's
3?
2024.
Okay, got it. That's pretty
The
quick.
first building that's being going up right now, which is affectionately called the Tibbetts Building, opens up in October.
Very nice.
It's four apartments upstairs, 2 retail stores downstairs. It's Waffles is one retail store. The dry cleaners is the other retail store. One of the apartments, or 2 of the apartments upstairs are already spoken for.
Okay, that's great.
And there's pictures online. They're beautiful. Those apartments in that building are modeled after what's on Academy Street, which they were built 8 years ago, something like that. And that Academy Street is right across from the Royal.
Awesome.
Street. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Steve? Hearing none. Steve, thanks so much. We will be back in touch with you, we promise.
Fantastic. I'm going to go back to work. That was a nice half-hour meeting with you guys.
Good
You wanna do
presentation.
last thing?
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming. We
Yeah.
really appreciate
Oh,
it.
anytime.
Have a
Thank
great
you
day.
for having me. Great to see you again. I love the Mather Center. I must say that I was on the Mather Center committee with my friend Gene Coyle.
Yeah.
How many years ago was that?
2014 we moved in.
I think you came with your in-laws too for the
Yes.
Thanksgiving
Yeah.
dinners. and-
Yeah, we gotta start doing that again. St.
Yeah.
Patrick's Day and Valentine's Day. we
Come
used to
back.
do it. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Have a great day. Great. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. Our second item on the agenda is Peter to explore talking about other Fairfield County Commissions on Aging and the possibility of a subcommittee to work on it.
Right. Actually, I want to talk about 2 things. I want to talk about the end of the legislative session, and then I want to talk about the looking at commissions on aging. So let's take care of what happened in the
Sure.
legislature.
Sounds good.
So if your glass is half empty, you were not happy that the final budget was 860-something pages, because what happened was they just ended up dumping a whole bunch of bills into one bill because they didn't have the time and they were too polarized to come to decisions on individual items. So essentially, they put it all together. And some of us, if your glass is half full, there were some accomplishments. Okay, I just want to highlight what some of the accomplishments were. And just to remind you, and this is AARP's view. When we started out, these were all of the bills and all of the issues that AARP took a stand on this year. So there was a lot of work in in this short session. So what did we accomplish? Okay, expanded access to the Connecticut Home Care Program for elders. That was included in that major budget. And what it meant was for care programs for the elders, it was CHCPE, more accessible by lowering the copay from 4.5% to 3%. So that was, I think, a considerable savings for folks going forward. Creating a community ombudsman program, which was only for those folks in some type of care institutions. is now going to be available for the 30,000 individuals who receive Medicaid home and community-based long-term services and supplies. And what I mentioned last time, I think, in Senator Billy Miller, who represents a piece of our town, but mostly Stamford, really stepped up and provided the mechanism for the funding of that, and is starting to commit herself to the long-term care individuals as a champion in Hartford. So that's really good news. They're putting together a homemaker companion agency issues study. So again, it's kind of kicking the can down the road, but at least the can is on the road. Elder abuse. The deadlines for mandatory reporting of suspected elder abuse was 72 hours for elders, and it's 12 hours for kids. What's wrong with that? Well, that's been changed, so that new law now says 24 hours for elders as well. So again, to more quickly raise elder abuse issues. Mandatory training for those people reporting elder abuse, again, makes sense. So just to again codify it and train folks so that they know what to do and how to react. They are expanding the funding of broadband infrastructures, and that's really just grabbing a hold of federal money that was out there. So that's not costing the state anything, but really starting to deal with broadband for so much of Connecticut is rural, to make sure that happens. Tax relief, statewide car tax cap, lowering the statewide car tax cap from 45 mils to 32.46 mils, and it will not apply to this town, because our mill rate is 16.84. So, but again, so it's more for the larger metropolitan areas. Property tax credit was raised from $200 to $300. Expanded absentee balloting. Again, it's not as expanded as we want, but again, it expanded, at least for this year. Again, we're going to have that availability to do more work in expanded remote balloting. I can tell you it's going to become an issue, I think, for the Secretary of State, the political that are running. So I think that's going to be an issue, because some will not want to expand it. And we are one of the tightest states when it comes to verification at balloting time. And again, we are really in a minority of states at this time for how severely we do monitor balloting. And there's pluses and minuses to that, as we know. Data privacy. There's Senate Bill number 6 dealing with, they found that 1/3 of people over 45 said they or a family member had been a victim of a scam or a fraud, and they put it together a data privacy, and very few other states have it, and this is what the federal government should be doing and they need to do. So again, I think that was a very strong victory of that. So that was the good news. What didn't happen, prescription drug reform did not happen. Nursing home payment structure did not happen. So that the state is trying to control how much they put, a nursing home puts back into its own pockets versus how much it increases its coverage.
Do you attribute this to lobbying?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So they're very powerful interests that are trying to keep our legislators from doing the right thing, basically.
Yeah, and truly, again, when you look at it, there's a monopolistic element. So there's two things: those individuals that control a large share of the facilities, and the unions that feel it affects their privacy. So there's two dimensions. So it's been a very, very tough fight in Hartford. It always has been. Mm-hmm. And I've said this before, we made a lot of progress, but we made the progress on the backs of thousands of dead people. with COVID in nursing institutions. Long-term care. They've eliminated some practices on home care where you were subject to a $10,000 fine if you were hiring someone that had worked at a facility that you then hired. So they're trying to clean that all up as well to protect those home care workers, and again to put some focus on again the ownership. So that's pretty much the summary of all of that. Let me turn to the other topic, which is commissions on aging. So, as we mentioned last time, I decided to see about commissions on aging, and I took a look at the 35 towns that comprise Fairfield County. And this is just in the beginning, so I'm just going to give you some highlights today. Of the 35 towns, I surveyed 24 of them. 8 towns have no commission on aging. For example, Bridgeport. Bridgeport, the commission on aging is essentially the 5 senior center directors. And candidly, their focuses vary depending on where they are, depending on their own background. Fairfield has no commission on aging, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Stanford has no commission on aging, and there's a group of people in Stanford that are in the process of petitioning Carol Simmons to put a commission on aging in place. And from what I heard is that she's at least listening to those requests. Norwalk, Shelton, Southport, no, and the focus is on senior centers. There's a senior center only program, essentially. And Wilton the same, and Bethel the same. It was interesting. Bethel said they had a commission on aging, but the last report of the commission on aging that on the website was in 2012.
Whoa.
2012. So there are 16 towns with commissions on aging, and it's truly very, very varied, okay? In some cases, appointments are for 3 years. In some cases, appointments are limited number of people. In some cases, the commission is mandated to have a clergyman, mandated to have other folks in town that are leaders in town. New Fairfield, Newtown, Reading, and again, I'm getting more information on some of these. In the course of looking at this, I called Marie Allen, and I chatted with her because in any number of the online sites, the key reference was SWACA, not any commission on aging. So key references were a commission itself, senior center, or a SWACA. So Marie and I had a conversation about this, and I said to her, there might be some opportunity to act collectively, and she thought that was a terrific idea. And what she said was, as you develop this, and if you think that it has merit, she said, I would be glad to put together a Zoom meeting on this subject, and so bring together those commission on aging leaders that would have a particular interest and see what we might do going forward, which I thought was terrific. And then so she talked about a couple of specific towns and programs, and the one that I was really interested in is the Fairfield Senior Advocates. So you're nodding your head.
Well, I live in Fairfield and I know.
And so you know of them,
Yeah.
right? And so I had a Zoom meeting with 4 of them, actually just yesterday. And Fairfield has no commission on aging. And, you know, again, they bemoan that, and yet they have moved ahead. But their particular driver is looking at lowering property taxes for seniors. And they have done some very interesting work, and I'll just hold these two charts up. One deals with residential ownership by value. One deals with age of ownership. And they have 14 towns that they compare themselves. Not 14, let's see. "16 towns that they compare themselves to." So Joe, I asked him our favorite question. I said, "Do you know of any study that looks at how much contribution seniors make to the town in the form of how they spend in town versus how much they take away, how much they lean on services?" And they laughed because they said that's what they're working on. And so their whole primary focus has been on tax relief for seniors, particularly property, real estate tax relief for seniors. So that's how it's starting. So again, to wrap up, I'll do some more groundwork on this and then I'll report back. But in the meantime, again, I'm greatly disappointed that our commission is still lacking so many members. And I think going forward, we really need to have a full deck to deal with this. And I would like to ask now, suggest that somebody here perhaps might want to work with me as this program develops. And I don't need you to raise your hand now, but you can get back to me and say, hey, I'd like to do this. For example, if we go forward with Marie's suggestion, probably we need to develop a base of questions. What questions would you have as a commission that you'd like to get affirmation from other commissioners or other commissioners' inputs on? So that's where we stand on that.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Any questions for Peter?
I
Yes.
just have one question. That's very interesting, that chart, that tax assessor's chart for Fairfield. Do we have that kind of availability in Darien to measure?
Good
It's a
question.
computer database kind of thing, right?
I asked them how they got that, and they've been working with Sacred Heart University, and they had some volunteers from Sacred Heart University from the economics department. But sure, we could do it as well.
Doesn't that sound interesting?
Well, what I think is fascinating, because they're so similar to us, in other words, they probably got towns that are similar to us on that chart.
Yeah, but in a way, and you know, Steve pointed out one with the parallel to post one, but more important, I mean, they are really different, and what makes them truly different is they're 60,000 people,
Right.
and we're 22,000
Yeah,
people.
sure.
They also have two major universities that pay no real estate taxes, so they have that as a tax base. They also have thousands of students that did indirectly draw on town services that we don't have, so.
I'm thinking more of the towns surrounding Fairfield. In other words, they're comparing, so I'd be interested in knowing whether the towns that are in those charts are the towns like near Darien as well. Notice, which other towns are they referencing?
Well, I'll tell you who they are.
Go for it.
It's, of course, us.
Good.
Easton, Farmington, Glasgow, Greenwich, Canyon, Newtown, Reading, Ridgefield, Trumbull, West Hartford, Weston, Westport, and Wilton. So they reach outside of Fairfield County. In other words, in their analysis, they use the broader thing to compare.
But I love it because that analysis, right, funded effectively or volunteered by Sacred Heart is something we can use as well. In other words, it's great. So I'm thrilled you got in touch with these four people.
And I can't, I'm not going to share this.
No, I got it. But if we get their permission at some point in the fall or spring of next year, whatever, right, we might be able to use something similar involving our own seniors' taxes, right? In other words, because that's the data we need.
It's like a frame of reference, you
Right,
know? 'Cause
exactly.
you can't just look at it like the spreadsheet. You gotta look at what tax revenue is coming in from bigger places too.
Yeah,
Like they have
yeah.
their university. Well, we've got some big taxpayers, we've got Weburn, we've got, that kind of thing. So you have to look at the whole
The
picture.
Zigglers. Which,
You
you should
know
notice
about
I did
that.
not go to Steve to that. Okay, I left him
I was
alone.
hoping no one would say anything
I
about that.
didn't go there. But that is a cute question,
Can I-
right? So anyway,
can I
I'm
ask
gonna
you
be
a question?
fascinated if we can get access to that data and they're okay with us. And of course, I'm not gonna step on their toes. But at such time, that's good data.
And it goes back, they based it on census, it goes back to 1990, so they've looked at every 10 years how it's evolved.
Awesome. Thank you. Good stuff.
Speaking of Zigglers, I can't ask the question, but does the town really realize they're only buying half the property?
Oh, yeah, they do.
Because that real estate lady who represents the Stony Cross portion, she keeps calling it discounted pricing. It isn't. It's higher pricing on half the acreage.
Well, we'll see how it plays out. Now, right now, it's just a matter of
just-
studies, and we'll see. But yeah, the big question from our perspective, right, is how much of the tax base would we give away in this wonderful $100 million purchase, right? In other
It's
words,
just such a high price. I just don't know where to get their price.
right, we'll find out. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be people other than us making that decision, but, you know.
I know.
We'll nevertheless.
We're just in this confidential room. We're just talking.
Oh, yeah,
about
this
it.
confidential room on TV 79. Absolutely. Fairly warned. So, in any event, the long story short
That's
is.
all I'm mentioning is the.
No, that's fine. No, I find it fascinating, right? Because it's the balancing act of the wonderful things you could do there, a 9-hole golf course, swimming pool, the pool people will come back, all that stuff that can happen there versus what you're giving away in terms of your tax base,
Yeah.
right? 2-acre zoning on that property with some really nice homes would bring our mill rate down, almost guaranteed, right? So anyway, it is what it is. So,
One other quick thing.
Sure.
The University of Michigan has put together a national poll on healthy aging, older adults preparedness to age in place. And I tell you, I mean, I read this, and I mean, our At Home in Darien program was a charter for this, and our needs of our town so parallel are the national needs. So again, it's the National Poll on Healthy Aging, the University of Michigan. If you go to the University of Michigan, it's a website, you can see it, and I would again encourage you as commission members to take a look at it.
nice. And At Home in Darien is still looking for a successor for Gina, correct?
Yes, they are. I think the last time Jim reported
Right.
there weren't very many candidates. The converses happened.
Oh,
Jim,
good.
They had more than, I think Jim said more than 80 candidates.
They
and-
posted it on Indeed.
Pardon?
They posted it on Indeed.
Good.
Exactly right. And Jim said he's been spending his time telling a lot of what they consider overqualified people about the job. But they have, I think, 2 or 3 candidates, it's narrowed down to 2 or 3 candidates. And they're in the final process.
Yeah, he was just saying before, we're gonna try to interview someone on Monday.
Nice, that's fantastic.
Well, then you can tell us more about it.
But I can't tell you more than that, except for there were quite a few.
Did I say it correctly?
Yes, he was just saying before that he had over 75 resumes, and yeah, a lot of people were overqualified. But yeah, there's some good potential candidates. I think Monday afternoon, we're gonna try to set up an interview.
Nice, that's great news. So hopefully we will have somebody who may be able to join our meetings going forward. That's fantastic. Good.
Well, I would encourage, and maybe that you make this known, that if our 3 ex officio members are not available either through vacation or illness or busyness, that they have somebody on their staff come, so that again, we have this continuity. And it also, I think, then provides more insight into the staff itself. And again, I know how busy and how thin your staffs are, but at least it keeps them top of mind of what we do. So I would encourage that someone come and talk about it, as opposed to, we don't do anything because that person's not here.
Fair enough. It just depends. Beth, do you
It's
have
just
such a person who could actually
Well,
report?
right now, we're so short-staffed that actually I put a note on the door because that person's caught in traffic.
Wow.
And not be here till 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, but to Peter's point, it's really important to have someone at every meeting. So we're working on
Okay.
filling 3 part-time positions at this point.
And Ally, we know that we've had some.
Cynthia.
Cynthia's been
Yeah.
great when she's come, so
Yeah.
that's been great. So that's cool. Okay, good, and then if Adam and Darien can show too, that'd be great, awesome. Other old business? New business? Hearing none, amazingly, we still completed our task within 1 hour. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, second. All in favor? Aye. Thanks, everybody, great meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.